Do you like French grammar? You're allowed to say no. When I ask my new students how they feel about French grammar, the answers range from to do I have to? Very few people actually love grammar. In this video, my intention is to help you see grammar not as something compulsory and boring that you just have to deal with, but rather as something quirky and interesting that you can be curious about. And then I will share with you 2 ways to learn French grammar and how you can combine them for best results. So if that sounds interesting, keep watching. My name is Angèle Preto, and on this channel we talk about what it really takes to learn French. I make new videos every single Monday, so make sure you subscribe so you won't miss my upcoming videos. First, what is grammar? A dictionary would tell you that grammar is the whole system and structure of a language, meaning a whole bunch of rules that you just have to learn and sort of deal with, right? But I prefer to look at grammar differently. I prefer to look at grammar as some sort of worldview that the speakers of a language have agreed upon. So the speakers of English have a certain worldview, and the speakers of French have a different worldview, which is sometimes similar and sometimes different from the English worldview. And speakers of other language have a yet different worldview. Let's take an example so you can see what I mean. Let's take the example of genders. So in English, you have masculine, which you use for men, and you have feminine, which you use for women. In French, we have the same thing. Masculine for men and boys, feminine for women, except we extend it to everything else. So for us, every single thing has a gender which is either masculine or feminine. For example, this glass, un verre, is masculine. This pen, un crayon, is also masculine. And this spoon, une cuillère, is feminine. We do that with every single thing. That is different from English, where in English, all the things, or almost all the things, actually have a third gender. You refer to them as it, right? Well, except for boats, which are feminine, and machines, which are sometimes also feminine. Why? Well, it's just a way of looking at it, which speakers have agreed upon. See what I mean? Other languages have a completely different system for genders, or no system for genders at all. Some languages just don't do any genders, they just have one, and it works for them. So as you can see, it's not right or wrong, it's just a different way of looking at things, like a different worldview. So instead of despairing that we have to learn all that stuff, we can just choose to see it as some interesting quirks and learn to see the world a little bit more like the French speakers do when we're speaking French. And this really is what mastering grammar means. You see the world and the language as the French speakers do, and then you speak in the same way that they do using their grammar. So concretely, how can you do this? First, let's look at what I like to call the hard way to learn grammar. If you've had French at school, or another language for that matter, you've likely received the message that grammar is boring but necessary, which is what caused the attitude that we were speaking about at the beginning of this video. And really, you've had to learn grammar the hard way. And the hard way means plenty of exercises. Sometimes these exercises are called drills, if that speaks to you, drills or grammar exercises. And honestly, it can help in some cases, and I will tell you later in this video how grammar exercises can help you without you getting into doing so many exercises, because quite frankly, when you do too many exercises, it can even get in the way of your learning. If you do a lot of grammar exercises, you become really good at doing grammar exercises. You don't become really good at actually speaking the language. And this is how some people can learn French for years and years and years in school and just not be able to make a sentence in the end, because if they've only done grammar exercises, well, they're really good at the grammar exercises. And that's not helping, or that's only partially helping. So what actually helps with speaking French? There's what I like to call the easy way, and it's really easy, but it's a little bit hit or miss. So just put this caveat here. It's like what I like to call the daily French bath, or some other people like to refer to it as immersion. Think of it, when you were a child, you've learned English and you've assimilated the grammar sort of naturally. Like before you went to school, maybe you had grammar at school, but before you did, you were already able to make sentences and speak in a way that got you understood. Most of the grammar you had assimilated it naturally like that. Here's some good news. You can actually still do it. Even if you're an adult, no matter your age, you can learn French grammar or most of French grammar through immersion by just being in touch with some French content every day. And I have made a video about how you can listen to French every day without needing to invest more time in it, so I put the link up here. However, like I was telling you, this easy way is a little bit hit or miss, and it has two limitations that you need to keep in mind. So the first thing is that it works better for some people than others. If you're a person that tends to assimilate things without needing things to be explained to you formally, it will work better for you. If you're a bit more like me and you really need to understand how the language works, it won't work as well. So that's something to keep in mind. And the second thing is that with this method, with this assimilation natural method, it is actually a lot easier to learn what is similar to English than what is different. Remember, I was telling you that some French grammar is similar to English grammar and some is different. So with this immersion method, it will make it really easy for you to assimilate what is similar to English, but not so much what is different. And the reason is that the existing English grammar in your brain is actually stronger than the new input. So in order to learn what is different, you might want to circle back to the first method and do some exercises. And this is the best way to learn French grammar, by leveraging immersion as much as you possibly can and then stacking up some exercises in order to help with the things that you don't really learn naturally through immersion. This is what I use with my clients. And by the way, if you'd like to work with me one-on-one or join my group program, you'll find all the links in the description below as usual. And so here's how we deal with grammar in these programs. First, immersion is a really important thing. So I call that the daily French bath, and it's pretty much compulsory if you want to be making progress. So I assume that you will learn the most things through immersion, and then I help you identify the things that aren't being learned and that will cause some friction in the way you communicate. So let's say, for example, you know you have troubles using the verbs in the past, and you know you need to work on the verbs in the past specifically. So this is what I do. I explain the rules again. You can find the rules on the internet or in a grammar book as well. I explain the rule to my clients, the specific rule that's in the way that they haven't assimilated yet. I give them some exercises to help them assimilate that. So, and then what happened is that the fact that the rule has been explained to you either by me or by your grammar book or whoever explains the rule to you, it causes you to draw your attention to this particular aspect of the language. And it activates a part of your brain that is known as the reticular activation system. And this is the part of your brain that basically constantly filters the environment to decide what is important and what isn't. Because the fact is that in your environment, you have way too much input. And of course, if you're practicing immersion with your daily French bath, the daily French bath is part of this input. And there is a part of your brain who just decides, okay, I'm going to keep this and I'm going to let this out, because your brain just cannot process all the information that's in your environment. And this part of your brain, the part of your brain which decides this, is the reticular activation system. And how it decides what's important and what isn't is most often due to the fact that it has seen things before. So once you've seen a rule recently and your attention has been drawn to the rule, your reticular activation system is activated. Then in your next daily French bath, you'll start noticing the new elements that you've learned in class. And these elements were always here, but you just never noticed them before because they weren't activated. So this is a way of using repetition to assimilate the grammar and leveraging both the immersion process and also the exercises that you might do. That is the easiest and the most efficient way to learn the French grammar by far. Did you learn something in this video already? If so, click the like button because it really helps other learners like you find the channel. And let me recap the key points of this video. First, we learned to see grammar not as something annoying, but as something quirky and interesting, which is some sort of worldview that you can just acquire and use when you're speaking French. We learned that it is important to use immersion a lot and to assume that you will actually learn a lot of grammar through immersion alone. Then you can do targeted exercises for whatever isn't getting learned through immersion. And then you'll be able to use immersion to consolidate what you've learned in class and in those targeted exercises. So that's it for this video. Please let me know in the comment if you have learned something and if this has changed the way that you look at grammar and if you will change the way that you learn grammar in the future. And as for me, my name is Angèle Preto and I will be back next Monday with a brand new video. See you next week.